Once, when she was invited to a fortune-telling show, Momo's Seiko was invited to guess about Ito's preferences, but all of them were wrong. Everyone did not believe what she said because they thought, how can such a young man have a wife and children? It sounded like a joke, but no one complained, so the show crew decided to air this episode on TV. On the way home, the driver recognized her on TV and asked curiously, "Do you really have the ability?" And her answer was, "Let me get off the car in the middle of the road." She also advised, "If you don't want to die, then leave quickly." After taking control, Mrs. Turbo was about to kill Momo when she was suddenly blown into the water by a flying nail. Seiko did not expect that her granddaughter would be so outstanding this time that she would bring a ghost soldier home. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren, only eating with leopards is good. Turbo was furious and jumped to attack, but ended up being set ablaze by the barrier she had set up earlier. Seiko puffed on her cigarette, guessing that the demon would circle around and hit the dead corner, only to run straight into the trap that had been set. Seiko took out a huge pencil and drew a similar circle and warned, "If you step out of that line, you'll die." The ant had an apology, admitted his mistake, and asked her to tell him how the evil spirit was doing. With no other choice, she replied, "Go to the main hall and check." The female lead heard that and ran away, apologizing to herself for causing him to be like that. When she opened the door, she saw the young man sitting there calmly chewing rice, but she felt strangely relieved. Before Ken could finish his sentence, Momo closed the door and cursed, "Still alive and well, damn 4 eyes. Just making people worry." Seiko poked her head out, startling her. She explained, When she stopped by, she noticed that the spiritual energy was not very strong, but she could not get close to the tunnel. Location-bound spirit are spirits that have a strong connection to a certain place. When they are in their own territory, they are almost Why don't we stick a charm in the tunnel, wouldn't that be better? Seiko refuses. No. I can only borrow the power of the gods residing in this land, so, you two better upgrade your strength. I can't help you directly, but I'll train you two before she comes. As she left, Ken stammered, "Sorry, I was only thinking about myself when I fought that giant monster. But you saved me, and even defeated the monster. I'll try my best, I don't want you to be disappointed. Please don't stop being my friend." Momo frowned, "You're thinking too much." So these two idiots suddenly argued with each other about the door slamming incident earlier. To conclude, Momo praised Ken, "You were cool when you fought. But you're so stupid, maybe I'll save you next time." Before taking the mattress, Ken awkwardly asked Momo to get him some water. While Momo was getting water, the breaking news on TV was, the young man interviewed by Seiko is actually 27 years old. Has a child, and likes to eat curry instead of ramen. The next morning, Ken suddenly had a fit of wanting to go to the toilet even though his little guy had disappeared, and if Momo wanted to help, she had to pay the price of watching him pee. Momo didn't want Ken to come into her house to defecate, so she used her ability to stop him. The two of them rushed out with Seiko to fight over who could go to the toilet first. In the end, Ken won, but still felt humiliated to have to go to the toilet while Momo was standing guard. While Ken was so humiliated that he didn't know where to hide his face, Seiko and Momo stood outside and calmly discussed Momo's ability. In a moment of distraction, Turbo escaped and cursed Seiko. Momo turned around and saw her body standing there motionless with a nose bleeding, not understanding what was happening. "Through this kid, I can infect the curse to curse and kill anyone he has ever met. If he doesn't meet me in the tunnel tonight, I will use this kid to kill everyone around." Turbo disappeared, leaving behind Panic. The talisman to ward off evil spirits on the wall was also stained with blood. Before setting off, Seiko equipped the two of them with bulletproof vests specifically designed to fight evil spirits, and then cast a protective spell. Seiko grumbled, "Your impulsiveness is the reason you always get into trouble." But even so, she gently hugged Momo, saying, "Don't die." Knowing that it was a crucial moment, the two of them still had to take the train. "If you cycle there, you'll just break your legs." Momo was furious and decided to give Turbo a good beating for daring to hurt the person he loved. They board the train, and Momo takes off the ceremonial dress to put on her usual clothes because she doesn't care about protection, as long as she looks good. Ken and Momo arrive at the tunnel, and Momo says that maybe they shouldn't bother trying to drag Turbo Granny out of the city to defeat her right here. She believes that if they could defeat the giant sumo alien, then the ghost Granny is nothing compared to that. Just as she says this, they find their path blocked by a giant head, looking like it's straight out of Attack on Titan. They freak out, but to their horror, another head is blocking the path on the other side. Now, he is no longer affected by her curse. Both demon mouths attack them at the same time, and just as they're about to be eaten, minutes. Turbo Granny agrees, and as she starts counting, Ken and Momo run away at full speed. However, the old ghost is a cheater and counts down to 10 minutes and 20 seconds before chasing after them. She grabs Momo with her power and traps her in a prison of meat. As Ken tries to free her, Turbo Granny walks up to him and says she is going to count 10 minutes for him now. Turbo Granny replies that Momo never specified how to count the 10 minutes. She gives Ken no time to react, finishing his countdown as well. Just as she's about to touch him, Ken jumps at her and bites her with all his strength. Turbo Granny can't free herself because of the ceremonial clothes Ken is wearing, so she decides to possess him first, then tear off those clothes. She thinks she should eat Momo and finish things quickly. But suddenly she is unable to move. As soon as Turbo Granny possesses Ken, Momo senses her aura and crushes her with her powers. Turbo Granny fights back, attacking Momo, but she manages to subdue her power. Ken misses his attack at the last moment. They are happy because they've reduced Turbo Granny to a small snake, but then suddenly the evil spirit of the tunnel begins attacking them and demands they return Granny. Ken and Momo run out of the collapsing tunnel, but the evil spirit follows them through the roadside. It suddenly bursts out of the roadside in the form of a crab, but luckily it's stupid and gets easily distracted. Ken asks Momo to let him transform, but she finds it incredibly hard because now the real body of Turbo Granny is inside him. She manages to control Turbo Granny's power and Ken transforms just as the crab is about to hit them. They run away at full speed, but Ken can't turn around a corner and jumps off a cliff. Momo starts screaming in his ear that they are falling, so he uses all his strength and twists his legs like helicopter blades, because physics and anatomy don't apply to him. He slows their fall and lands safely, but suddenly the crab spirit jumps at them. Momo is thrown into the air, but she freaks out when she sees dozens of faces on the evil spirit's back. She climbs onto Ken's back as he starts racing through the town, and people start taking pictures because they think they're just being stupid. Momo realizes that no one can see the spirit crab, and even Ken looks normal to them. He tells her not to worry about small things because he's about to run out of gas. Momo comes up with an idea and directs Ken to a hot spring. The crab crashes into a building as it chases them, and then Momo pours hot water on it, thinking it will cook it and they will be saved somehow. Her random go method actually works, and they immediately resume running out of the town. Suddenly, they see a huge group of people running toward them, but only after they get close do they realize that they are all zombies controlled by evil spirits. They start running in the opposite direction, and Turbo Granny laughs at them, saying she borrowed help from spirits at the local cemetery to stop them from leaving. They suddenly find themselves surrounded on all sides, and even the crab is back in action. Momo tells Ken to go full throttle, and he says it won't help them escape the city. She tells him to trust her and turns him into his superhuman form. Turbo Granny says she has won because Ken can only go full throttle once, as he already used it in the helicopter move. Momo climbs onto Ken's back, and Ken dashes ahead at full speed. Momo clears their path using her power and swings across buildings like Spider-Man. They get past the zombie horde, but the crab is still ahead of them. Momo throws a car at it, then Ken runs over it and leaps over the building behind them. Momo corrects their direction by swinging from a pole, and they can see the train that leads out of the city. But then Ken returns to normal. Momo uses her force ability as wings to slow them down and also helps Ken transform again so he can help them land safely. However, as they hit the ground, Ken loses consciousness after reaching his physical limits, and Momo can't do much either. She tries to wake him up but then suddenly notices that she let go of Turbo Granny during the landing. To her shock, Turbo Granny and her army of spirits are right in front of them, and she merges with a crab spirit to kill and eat them. She taunts them, asking if they plan to challenge her again and says how long do they want the countdown to be this time. Momo suddenly says that she only needs 1 second to get away from a slowpoke like her. Just then, a train passes overhead, and she grabs it with her power, getting on it and escaping the ghost army. Turbo Granny chases after her and gets on the train, saying there's nowhere to run now. Momo replies, "That's my line," and grabs her with her force hands as the train nears the boundary of the city, where Seiko is lying in wait to finish the job. Turbo Granny strains to reach Momo, but the train crosses the city boundary and enters the barrier erected by Seiko. The power of the barrier burns Turbo Granny and the crab, and the spirits inside them turn to ash. The train stops at its final station. And Momo drags Ken to the platform, where he wakes up, still in the middle of the battle. Soon, Seiko arrives to receive them, and they head to the tunnel to pay their respects to the girls who were violated and killed there, later becoming evil spirits because of that. Seiko says that shamans like her have been chasing Turbo Granny for a long time, and she was always found near places where the spirits of tormented girls were present. She wonders if Turbo Granny just wanted to support them, but humans and ghosts should not interfere in each other's affairs if they want to live in peace. After that, they return to Momo's home, where Seiko and Momo begin fighting over crab meat, but Ken can't eat anything after everything they've been through. He gets ready to go home, and Momo tells him she'll see him tomorrow, making him realize that he now has a friend.